So for me, I came up to a roadblock and I'm going, well, am I ever going to scale this business? And if I do, how am I going to do it? But I didn't know how to do it. And so much of my belief leading up to that was it can't be done. So I kind of had to shift my mindset to, okay, it must be done. I must do it. And now how are we going to make this work?
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Fitness Founders Podcast. I'm Kevin Mannion, VP Marketing here at Glofox. This week, we talk to the fitness hacker Mike Lipowski, a bodybuilder, published author, and the creator of his own fitness franchise, Pure Physique. Famed for his 30-minute workouts, Mike has a unique perspective on high-intensity training. And he tells us how he's built a business that's all about making it easy for his members to stay in shape. Let's have a listen. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
So Mike, tell me a little about your business, Pure Physique.
All right, so basically our business, it started off as a one-on-one training studio, but has since evolved into, now becoming obviously a fitness franchise. But essentially, our mission really hasn't changed that much over time. I mean, we're here basically to just lift the restrictions people place on themselves for achieving what would be their ideal level of fitness. So for us, that kind of means, helping people transform their body without calorie counting, cardio, or more than 90 minutes of exercise a week. And we basically do that through workouts that are just intensely efficient, 30-minute resistance training-based workouts.
Cool. And I've read you talk about fitness hacks. So can you tell me what exactly is a fitness hack?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I was, speaking one day with a friend of mine and colleague, and I was kind of breaking down what we do, and he's in, I guess, what you would consider to be the biohacking space, right? And biohacking's all the rage these days. Whatever you can do to, again, hack your physiology so that you could perform better, think better. And so when I broke down what we did in terms of our approach to training and even nutrition, he's like, you're like a human fitness hacker. I'm like, yeah, I guess you could call us that. And so it kind of stuck. And so, yeah, I mean, we do in a lot of ways view ourselves as being fitness hackers because, as I was saying before, so many people have these, restrictions that they place on themselves when it comes to exercise or when it comes to nutrition. And yeah, I mean, everybody wants a shortcut, and we know there are no shortcuts. So, we prefer to look at it from the standpoint of if we can make things just more efficient for people, if we can make it, easy concepts to grasp, if we can make it so that it fits into their lifestyle, people can start achieving some of the results that they're dreaming of, essentially. And I think a lot of people, they have these grand ideas of what they'd like to achieve, but they also look at the landscape and go, wow, it's going to take a lot for me to do that. So we kind of show them, again, those more efficient methods of getting from where they are to where they want to be, and show them that, listen, you are not restricted by time. You are not restricted by the fact that you don't want to sit down and count calories or macros and all that stuff. There's a way to do it. And so that's more or less where we step in, and we place our emphasis on what tools can we give them or what ways can we lead them to achieve some of these goals, but do it in a way that doesn't feel like it's burdensome on their life.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And what are some of those ways that you're lifting the burden, or what's unique about the approach that you take?
Well, I think first and foremost, if we just look at it from the side of the fitness itself, right, the exercise component, what traditionally have most people felt they needed to do in order to get in shape? It's usually I have to be in the gym for an hour each time, and at least that, and I have to do it at least 5 or 6 days a week. So already you're painting a picture of, okay, I have to be in the gym for 5 or 6 hours a week. What's the next part of that? Well, I have to do some combination of cardio because that's a necessity.
Yep.
And I have to do some resistance training because that's a necessity. And, when we break it down, we're looking at it going, well, you actually don't need a lot of that stuff. You don't need an hour each workout, and you don't necessarily need to do mind-numbing cardio. The resistance training, we believe, deeply in our hearts, it's our core DNA. Like, we believe that is the one source of exercise or one form, I should say, that pretty much covers the entire umbrella. It's more like an umbrella that kind of hits on almost every major aspect of somebody's fitness. So whether, they're trying to improve their muscle tone because they want to look better, they want to be stronger, they want to have more energy, they want to be more functional, they want to be more flexible. You name it. I mean, resistance training done properly really covers the full gamut. And you can't say that about many other forms of exercise. Most will highlight a certain component, but rarely is there one that actually covers them all. And that's the one thing resistance training does. And so we set our focus on, okay, so how can we perform resistance training in like the most time efficient, but also effective manner possible? And so for us, I mean, most people would look at what we do, and if they were to categorize us, we would probably fall into the category of high intensity training. Not high intensity interval training, because we're not into doing any of the plyometric stuff, and again, we're kind of staying out of that realm of cardio, but rather high intensity training in its more traditional form, which was some people would look at it and say it's circuit training, though that's part of what we do. It's not what we do. But yeah, I mean, it would fall into that category of, again, high intensity resistance training that's just built to be done efficiently and quickly, and providing your body with the stimulus that it needs to get the result you're looking for, while at the same time, again, balancing that out with the time that your body absolutely needs to recover and to realize those gains from that particular stimulus.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And you've obviously got a long career in high intensity training yourself. So maybe tell me a little bit about your time as a bodybuilder. I'm sure people will be interested to learn about that.
Yeah, well, it's funny how I kind of fell into bodybuilding. I mean, I had like somewhat of a fascination of it since I was a kid. I mean, since I was 7 years old, it was seeing, my superheroes, right? I was into Superman and Hulk, and, at the time you had Lou Ferrigno playing the Hulk on TV. And I don't know, there was just something about it at that time that as a young boy, it influenced me. It was a trigger. I said, you know what? I want to have muscles. I want to look like that. And it led me down this road of, eventually getting into bodybuilding, of course, at first naively thinking that those guys achieved some of this thing, some of these gains naturally when I would be flipping through the muscle magazines. But really what brought it all together for me was I graduated college, and, I got a job as a personal trainer, and really I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I think this is what I really want to do as a career. I'm enjoying this. I'm doing what I'm passionate about. I love being in the gym. But the one thing that was missing was, like, what if somebody asks me how to get six-pack abs? And I'm looking at myself going, yeah, I mean, you've built some good muscle over the years, but you don't have six-pack abs. And so I said, you know what? If that's going to be my focus, all right, if I'm going to know how to teach somebody how to do some of these things, I better understand how to do them myself. Mm-hmm. And so I entered myself into my first bodybuilding show just as I got started as a personal trainer. So I think I was about 21, 22 years old. And I did it mainly as a learning experience. I figured if I entered myself into this show, I'd be forced to put myself into, the best condition possible. Because if I didn't, I was going to pretty much embarrass myself. So I had some real leverage there, and I went on this journey to compete, and literally I did it as a learning experience. But as I said earlier, I kind of always looked up to some of these superheroes and guys in the magazine and said, you know what, I would love to look like that one day, thinking all the time that all it took was enough training, right? If you trained enough hours and did it enough years, and your body would magically morph into this, not really understanding the nutritional component mm-hmm. to it all. So that's what it really did is bodybuilding kind of forced me to think and learn a lot more about nutrition and how that interacts with your training. And at that time is kind of when I first ventured into doing any form of high intensity resistance training, because up until that point, it was all what we all commonly did when we were young, right? We spent the hour and a half in the gym because what else did we have to do? So it's like if you enjoy doing it, you're passionate about it, and you have nothing but time, that's what you do. But not understanding all the science behind it, and not truly understanding the role that recovery plays and that nutrition, and how all these factors work synergistically, right, to help develop your body into whatever it is that is your ideal. So for me, the bodybuilding, it became twofold. It was, first, it's helping me to learn what I need to know in order to help other people and to be at the top of my game as a trainer. And I knew that it would separate me from other trainers who didn't have that knowledge or that understanding. And then the second thing was, it was a personal challenge. It was, how can I keep leveling up my game on a personal level? Like how, what are the limits of what I can achieve? What, how lean can I get? How much more muscle can I see? Or what can I expose that has never been exposed before? And so that for me was a big part of it. And it just, again, I just kept growing with a passion for bodybuilding.
Yeah, that's really cool. And tell me, what made you start a fitness business? What made you turn this into a livelihood?
I was totally unhireable. I was, and I only half joke about that, but the truth of the matter is, listen, I was one of those guys who, again, in college, wasn't passionate about anything but being in the gym. Mm-hmm. And, I was a physical education major, still didn't get the greatest of grades. So coming out of school, it was one of these things where I never had a desire to be a gym teacher, which is pretty much the only job you would get if you had a degree in physical education. But again, I had this passion for being in the gym. And, I always had somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit as well. And some of that comes from, I had a family member, an uncle who was an entrepreneur, the only one that in our family. And I kind of saw the way that he operated. And, I just thought it was pretty cool that he wasn't tied down to a job or anything like that. And, I thought that it would just be a cool thing to own a gym one day. And, I had that thought as early as 13 years old. I mean, I remember getting together with friends for like a high school reunion, and, we were talking about the fact that, we remember standing around in the gym saying, how cool would it be to one day own a gym? And I just went and did it. I went and did it because I never really thought of going on any other path. Mm-hmm. To me, it was just like, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to spend my time. This is what I want to do. And at that time, it was, thinking I'm going to open up something like, a traditional hardcore gym, never really thinking I'd open up a personal training studio, and then it morphs into more of just like, again, this, fitness studio that does personal training and group and has a larger impact than people just simply coming in, dropping a few dollars down and doing their own thing. It's just, for me, it became one of those situations. I came out of school and working at these other gyms, it was okay, but it didn't get me charged up like the idea of doing it on my own.
Yeah. And you've built a pretty successful business. It's got a real unique selling point. How did you know how to do all this?
I think that with anything, you don't know. I think things that basically they evolve over time. And, you sprinkle in a little bit of luck, and some, unique circumstances. And I think that's really what happened with me was, I think I got, and I truly believe this, not to bring faith into it, but like, listen, I'm a firm believer in God's plan, and, that you're always being led down the path that you're supposed to be led down. But you just got to recognize the signs. And for me, coming out of college, like I said, my focus had always been on these like marathon type workouts. I had never heard of high intensity training before. I only knew that I loved to lift weights and I wanted to look like a bodybuilder. And the first place that I land happens to be a Nautilus-based facility. And so up to this point, like I was familiar with Nautilus equipment, but I wasn't, familiar with the entire training philosophy that was developed by Arthur Jones, who invented the equipment. And so it was at that time just kind of being thrown into that circumstance and seeing like, wow, like all this time I've been putting, hours in each week. And now these guys are trying to tell me that I'm doing too much or that there's a better way to do it. And that was a little hard to accept. I mean, I wasn't, necessarily grasping onto it right away and saying, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. But I decided to be active-minded enough to give it a shot. And when I did, and I started seeing the results that I'd been hoping for years prior, I said, wow, maybe there's something to this. And so from that point for me, it just became, how can I learn more about this particular style? And wouldn't you know, like the next gym that I wind up at has 50 trainers on staff, but about 8 of them do different types of high intensity training. So now I have a whole new group of mentors that I'm learning from. And then from there, it rolls into me eventually opening up my own business, starting my own business. But more importantly, now as I'm digging into the business, I'm going, well, this model that I have isn't really scalable over time. And so what is scalable? Well, we look around and we know the stuff that's scalable is stuff that's more group oriented and, more community based. And so it was kind of like all right, this totally goes against my philosophy of individualized training and, giving people that really close attention. Like, so for me, I came up against like a roadblock, and I'm going, well, am I ever going to scale this business? And if I do, how am I going to do it? And there were different things happening around that time that were pointing more and more towards, you got to go group. But I didn't know how to do it. And so much of my belief leading up to that was it can't be done. So I kind of had to shift my mindset to, okay, it must be done. I must do it. And now how are we going to make this work? And so, we really, for I would say a solid 2 years, kept trying to refine a way of doing what we had always done in these one-on-one sessions and what I had learned up until that point, how to adapt that to a group setting and make it scalable. And, again, that is literally what led to us being able to franchise, because I think if we never took that step of finding a way to make this thing scalable, there was absolutely no chance that was going to happen.
Yeah. And tell me, you've had some changes of mindset in your career. I'm sure there's people who come to your gym and say, I'm not going to reach my fitness goals with 30 minutes of workout. How do you change their mindset?
Well, it's 2-part. Number one, it's, education. So we're gonna show you and help you to understand how this works and why it works. And then second is you put them through it, and then they quickly understand, okay, this is how it works. This is why it works. And it's because it's usually such a departure from what they have ever done in a gym setting. Like, people associate working out a lot or working out often or working
results.
out long with results, as well as they think it's working hard. But effort is what you're doing in that moment. And so how hard you're working in the moment, every moment, is what's most important to us. And that is what we're upholding during these training sessions, be it a group or one-on-one. And people quickly see like, wow, I've never actually trained hard. And when I go to the gym and I look around, those people really aren't training hard either. And so you realize like, okay, now what they're educating me about kind of makes sense. But the most important thing is, again, it has to be the proper application. And it can't just be something that, theoretically it should work like this. It's, you have to understand when it's put into practical terms, right? When that practical application comes along, then that's what connects everything. And so for us, yeah, I mean, people at first they are questioning whether or not this is going to work. But as soon as 2 weeks pass, they've done anywhere from 4 to 6 workouts. They're feeling significantly stronger. They're standing more upright. And then, within the next 4 to 6 weeks from that point, they're seeing these physical changes in their body. And yet they're working out. For those who've been working out, they're working out a fraction of the time that they have in the past. And for those who are new to it, it's like, well, hey, this is a home run, because I didn't like working out to begin with. So, if I could get in, get out, and get these outstanding results, then I'm good with it. And so they don't even really care. But,
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you apply the same approach to how you run the business?
Yeah. Yep. And it's funny because, somebody had said they were like, it's pretty amazing. Like, how do you, how are you able to build this business while, again, at the same time, bodybuild, right? Because, again, you think about the level of commitment that it takes to do both.
Yeah.
And so I always said, I was like, if it wasn't for the way that I went about my bodybuilding, right, which is our business model, same approach. I mean, over the course of, I retired, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago from bodybuilding, but for the 15 years I was doing it, I never trained more than 2 hours in an entire week. And so because of that, right, during the time that I'm focused on trying to get myself into the best shape I can, I'm still able to focus on the business because I'm not overly consumed by this personal pursuit. And then, on the other side of it, if it wasn't for the fact that I only had to, again, put that 2 hours a week into training, it's like I wouldn't be able to focus so hard on the business. So they definitely work synergistically, for me at least. And yeah, in the business, we're always trying to look for different ways that we can, again, hack our processes. How can we make things function more efficiently? What can we automate? What can we cut that really is just, it's an unnecessary step, or something that, is it something that's actually been holding us back? So we don't hold on too tightly to anything.
Give us an example of something like that in the business, somewhere you've found a hack.
I think one of the coolest ones for us was, we never operated really with a front desk staff. We don't have one of these gyms where you walk in and there's a staff there. It's like, it has always been personal trainer run, basically. And one of the things that we kept running into, though, is that as we're getting busier and busier and busier, the phone doesn't stop ringing. And, we're looking at this going, you know what, this is crazy. Like, we don't have time to answer it when it's going off, and we're, in the midst of training people. It's a distraction. Yet we don't have somebody sitting at the desk to answer the phone. Yet that's a problem because, these days it's like when somebody does call, it's like they want to hear somebody on the other end. They don't want to leave a voicemail.
Yeah.
And from a business perspective, that one of the key factors as to whether or not you're going to get somebody to join your facility or buy your product or, whatever it is how quickly can you get back to them?
Yeah.
And those statistics show that if you could get back to them within 5 minutes, well, statistically, now you're over a 50% chance of landing them as a client, a customer. Yet, the percentages just keep dropping from there with every minute, hour, day, and especially week that passes. So for us, we were like, you know what, we recognize it's important for people to, have that human contact, even if we can't speak with them. So we ended up going with a phone answering service. And so we pay them by the phone call. And, the way it works is really nice, where the phone call comes in, and this place is located. So we're in New York, and our phone answering service is located out in Nevada, 24/7.
Yep.
They're available. So somebody calls in, and obviously if it's after hours, they take the message. If it's during hours, well, what happens is then we have we have like a phone that we'll keep at our front desk, right? Just a little cell phone. And if somebody is available, that cell phone will start vibrating. And when the number pops up and we know it's the answering service, we can pick up, and they're like, so-and-so is on the phone. They're interested in training services. Can I put them through? And so if we're available, then great, we'll take them right then and there. If not, well, the phone answering service, it just simply gets back and lets them know, one of our trainers is not available at the time. They'll get back to you in just a few minutes. If I could just take your name and number for the time being. And simple as that. And then they shoot us a text message letting us know who called, and we can just do our follow-up in between those sessions. And so something like that just helped us, again, work more efficiently, as well as, it eliminates all the calls that we don't want to take either.
Yeah, it's the simple things.
Yeah.
And tell us, that's a really good one for getting people through the door. I'm sure all of our listeners will want to know, what do you do to keep people coming back? What have you done to build customer loyalty and retention?
Well, first I'll give the cliche answer is deliver more value, right? I mean, you got to deliver more value. And so because of the fact that we are only running 30-minute workouts, and sometimes, I mean, it's just like on the half hour, we have another, several people walking in or another group of people walking in. And so we don't get a lot of that time to, that you might get in a one-on-one session, or like, or in like these places where, they run 5 classes a day, and because they put, 30 to 45 people through one class, it's like you can do that. We can't. So for us, we make sure that, just about quarterly, we run quarterly, we host parties and stuff at our facility. So we're bringing people in, and that's the time to communicate. I think one of the biggest helps is social media. For all the things that we like to complain about social media, the one really cool thing is like it's a great opportunity to be able to highlight people, when online in front of the entire community, and people are learning about other people, and they get that sense of, wow, they're paying attention to me. Wow, they really care about me. Because again, we put it out there. We don't like hide that stuff. It's like we want to be out there highlighting people's success. And I think that has played a big role. It's just tough to keep up with sometimes. But yeah, I mean, doing just even little things like that, we believe that, if you just keep doing the little things, those touches, those ways of, showing people you appreciate them. I could give everybody like one really simple tactical thing to do. We ended up, so again, we have like a number of core values, right? And one of them is inspiration. And so when you walk into our studio, I mean, we have all these like, branded, Pure Physique branded quotes and stuff like that up on our walls. And we have this big word wall, huge. And what I did is like we just turned around and we took that and scaled it down and put it on the back of a business card. And then on the other side, we just put a little message at the top, basically saying, hey, you're inspiring us because you are exhibiting like, these values. It's something like I'm paraphrasing, but because you exhibit these values. And what it is, we have a list of about 13, not our core values, but values that we appreciate in the people who come here. So it's like your commitment, your consistency, your intensity of effort, again, just a number of things that are just awesome things about the people, or that we would love to see in our most valued, customer, our client. And so we have these, and we'll sit down as a team at some of our meetings, like maybe once a month, and we'll pass out a card or two to each trainer and say, all right, who should we be highlighting? And so they'll pick somebody, put their name on the card, circle the values and whatnot. And then, next time that person comes in, it's like, hey, we're handing this to them, and they're like, what's this? And we're like, I just want to say, like, we've just recognized that you've been doing an awesome job. You've been like super consistent for the past 3 months, and it's inspiring to us and everybody around us. and they're like, it's awesome. Like they have this thing now. It's like it's in their hands, right? It's tangible. It's something that we didn't have to. And I know it's always great to sit down and write handwritten cards, and we all know this. But like that's not always, again, especially when you're super busy. It's not always easy to do that. And like, all right, who's going to write it? Who's going to send it out? But this is something like really simple. Like, boom, just put it on a card, just hand it to them. And, on one side, like I said, it's like it's all our quotes. It's everything that is our brand on one side. And then the other side, it's like, this is how we view you. This is why, we value you. And they love it. And it's something that they're going to hold on to, right? I mean, it's like that's a put it up on the refrigerator type of thing. So
yeah. So you're rewarding your ideal customer for being your ideal customer.
Absolutely.
Cool. And tell me, what are, or maybe another question. You seem to be very conscious of your brand and how you use that to build your business. What was the thought process for coming up with your brand in the first place?
Good question. I would say that initially we really didn't have a brand. Initially it was, we have a training facility, and this is what we do here. But I think just by virtue of, once you start digging into your business, right? Like after you figure out what you're going to be, then I think, you have to really be clear on who you're going to be and who you're going to be that to. It was really interesting. Just to give a quick story, I mean, I was just speaking at a resistance exercise conference this past weekend, and it's a lot of other businesses who operate similar to us. They're into high intensity training, and so it was kind of like a nerd fest for guys who are into high intensity resistance training. And so many of them also run businesses that do 30-minute or 20-minute workouts and what have you. So I'm sitting down with our team, and we're looking at all these different businesses, and we look around and it's like, well, what does make us different? Because again, there's only within our niche would we be seen as, like, if you want to call it, common, right? What we do is not uncommon. In the big scheme of the fitness world, what we do is very uncommon. But we're looking around, I'm going, well, this one, like they're very, suit and tie professional, like, this one, they're kind of fun, this and that. Us, we're cool. I mean, we're like, like we like kind of being the cool kids. And I don't mean that in like a braggish type of way, but like our brand is intended to draw a certain client in and be like, yeah, this is cool. Like, I like being here because like this place is cool. These people, they're cool. Like, and what do you want to do? It's like, you want to hang out with cool people, right? It's you want to spend your time around them, and it makes the relationship a lot easier. If I got to like, really put you through the paces to get you the result that I want. Like, I don't want you to look at me like, wow, that guy's a jerk, or, this place is just way too dry for, what they're making me do. It's like, no, I want them to feel like, all right, this is a cool place, and I enjoy being here. So we just kind of had to find our own identity. And I think that's one of the key factors is when you're developing your brand. I mean, what you're really doing is you're putting a stake in the ground, and you're saying, like, this is our identity, and we live to be this. And for us, we have our core values, right? And we live to uphold those, but it's like we're also living to uphold a persona. And so we hire based on that persona. Everything that we do, it, kind of revolves around that persona. And I can't say that, we were conscientious about it. It's just, we knew we had to be something, and we kind of let it evolve. And the more things started to evolve, the more we started to say, yeah, you know what? Like, we're not like this one over here, and we're not like that one over there. And like, but what is it about us? And for us, it was like, yeah, like, we're kind of just like a cool place to come and hang out. If you gotta go someplace to work out, it's like, you might as well go someplace that's cool, right?
Yeah.
So
can't argue with that.
So, that's kind of our feeling on it, and that's how we approach it. And that's why even when we have these parties with our clients and stuff, it's like, it's laid back. It's not, we're not about being super formal or any of that stuff. It's like, we are super serious about what we do. like 100%. I mean, I would put us up against anybody in terms of like how seriously we take what we do and the way that we apply it. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, it's like we're not going to be super serious about, anything really outside of that. We're gonna be just laid back and just, hey guys, let's enjoy ourselves. Like, fitness is fun, so let it be fun.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Mike, tell me about some of the hard times. What mistakes have you made along the way?
Oh geez, what mistakes didn't I make? I think one of the biggest mistakes was being so closed off to to different ideas initially. For me, I always bring this back to me and my father have a great relationship, and but it's funny, like, when you're running your own business and you got those loved ones around you who always mean well, and they tell you, you should do this and you should do that. Well, my father was one of the ones early on was like, hey, you should really be doing classes. And I'm like, no, like, we're not doing that. That's totally going against the grain of what I believe in and what have you. And, I think I had to go through that period, though, of feeling like that and believing that in order to arrive where we are now. But, I think it was a mistake to be so closed off to the idea, though, whatsoever. And that's one of the things that I kind of have learned over time is, like, the old adage, never say never. And yeah, like, you're always going to stand behind certain values, but if something is not a core value of yours, then there's no sense in holding on so tightly to it. And so, one-on-one training was never a core value. It was just my belief and what I thought was, the way to go about things. And the fact that other people did things in groups and got results, but we did them, one-on-one and got results. To me, it's like, yeah, this is just the way we like to do it. But being closed off to the idea of doing it was definitely a mistake. And of course, I had, like most business owners, plenty of hiring mistakes. That was a big one. And then, of course, the mistake of not investing in things where, you try to do the work to save a few bucks, but you wind up setting yourself back in terms of your time and your energy and your effort, and you never quite do it as well as somebody who specializes in it would. And these are the same things that we're saying to people when they walk in, like, yeah, you can work out on your own, but you're going to make all of these mistakes and you're not going to get the result that you want. Whereas, yeah, you're going to spend some money with us, but you're going to get the result that you want. And I think that in business, I was guilty of the same thing. It's like, oh, let me build out my website. Let me create all of these, campaigns. Let me, do a million different things. And, thinking that either one, I was going to save money, or number two, it's like nobody was going to do it just as good as me. And I know for most entrepreneurs, that's definitely one that I'm sure resonates with a lot of the listeners out there. It's like we're all, we tend to be so hyper focused on doing everything like perfectly and doing it right. And sometimes you just got to say, like, listen, if somebody could do it 70% as well as I can, then it's probably going to be good enough. And, oftentimes it is. And so learning to let go was a big thing for me. And, it took quite a while, but once I did, it's like, oh, wow, this just freed me up to focus on the next bottleneck. And then, after kind of fixing that one a little bit, or finding somebody else that could, it was like, oh, wow, that just freed me up to work on this. And, the more that you're letting go of things and just putting them into the hands of others, I think the better off you are in the long run, because, it's like you're the one driving the ship. And, if you're so caught up in doing a task, if you're so caught up in like mopping the deck, how can you man the ship?
Yeah.
Right. It's like you can't do both.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And tell me, how do you apply this thinking to building out the franchise? Because obviously you can't be in every studio. How do you maintain that quality as you build a franchise?
Well, I think a couple things. I mean, number one, I believe that the advantage of a franchise over creating a chain let's say, is that, when you're trying to just open up multiple studios, and this is what we really had to arrive at, because we had the idea of before franchising, early on I thought I was going to franchise. Then I never thought I'd be able to franchise the business. Then I figured, you know what, maybe we'll just own several locations. And then it came back around to franchising. And the reason why was when you are trying to just open up multiple facilities, you sometimes you do your best to hire the right people. But if that person who's running one of these places for you doesn't have any skin in the game, what is their leverage for doing the job to the absolute utmost and to the letter of the law that you laid down? So you're going to have to be so on top of, or at least be present in some of those locations in order to just simply ensure that quality control. Whereas what I like about the idea of a franchise is, well, that person is fully bought in to this business. They have real skin in the game. They invested their own money to purchase these systems, these processes. And, there's always that thing hanging over them that listen, now that you bought this, you're legally bound to do this way. And, with that, it's I think it brings a certain level of awareness that you can't always get if you're just simply opening studios and just trying to plug, or find the right person to plug into each one. So now you have this person who's fully vested, and now it's they are so much more willing to follow everything that you tell them to, because you've already created the system, right? You have the proven processes, you have the system. So it's just follow this, go from this step to this step to this step, do it this way. And, you're going to make plenty of money. You're going to have, a life that you enjoy, because then you're going to, really get fulfillment out of what you do. But if you don't do it that way, it's well, again, we made all the mistakes and we know what happens, and it's not pretty, and you're not going to enjoy yourself, and it's not going to be a fun process. So, like I was saying, part of the reason why I franchise is so that I know that at least if I have to sit back and just simply facilitate these systems and processes, get people to learn them, understand them, perfect them, that's where my time is best spent. It's best spent helping other people just become better managers of their business, become better business owners. But if I have to run from one place to another to not just help a person become a better manager, but then have to literally have my hands in that business on a daily or weekly basis, to me, that's stretching my abilities way too far. And I know my limitations. I know where I'm best suited and what I do best. And so I'm trying to keep my focus on doing those things. And that's why even in the studio that I own, I'm not really training people anymore. I do a few sessions in the morning, just because, again, I like to keep the saw sharp, and I like to, I enjoy that interaction with those people, and again, kind of still being present in that way. But, you're talking about 2% of my day, 2% of my time versus if I felt like I still had to train people, on a half hourly basis all day long, it's I wouldn't be able to do the work on the business that I need to do, or to work on the franchise and help that continue to grow and to be present for my franchisees.
If I am a studio owner and I'd say I've got a really successful business, what sort of sense check do I apply to myself to know if I'm ready to start my own franchise?
I think the biggest factor is, how much have you documented about your business up to this point? I think the thing is that, franchising is a great idea, but it's only a great idea if you are truly prepared with, everything you need to be able to hand somebody a booklet, a manual, training modules, whatever it is. And if you're not prepared to have something that can be translated to others that they can then take and run with, learn with, then I would say you're not ready yet. And to spend more time focused on developing, those systems and those processes. Again, I go back to a little bit of luck and, a whole lot of trying to, actively learn as much as I could about all this. One of the books that I read early on was Michael Gerber's E-Myth. And if a business owner up to this point has not read E-Myth Revisited, it's like you have to get your hands on that book, because that kind of explains everything that I'm talking about. In the book, and if you're familiar with it, in the book he talks about, the technician. And the technician is usually that person who works for somebody, but they're like the best at what they do, and a lot of us in the fitness industry, we come to own our own facility because, well, maybe we're that trainer in a gym and we're like, I'm the best trainer in here. I deserve to be making more money than I'm making. And this gym is just making too much money off of me. And so you turn around and you say, all right, you know what? I'm going to start my own business. Then all of a sudden you realize once you start your own business that like you're hiring trainers and they're making more money than you are because you didn't recognize all the overhead and all the expenses and, everything that goes into owning your own business. So quickly, you realize like, oh boy, like I was the technician, but you're not the entrepreneur. Like entrepreneur doesn't start a business that they themselves have to do everything in. They're the ones who usually, again, like find other people to do it and create systems and processes so that business can run successfully. And then they hire managers to come in and run those businesses for them. And that's the thing is that if you're just owning your gym and it's really successful because of you, then I would say that you're not necessarily ready to franchise. Not until you've taken what's in your head or what you do and you've proven that you can put other people in place that can deliver that as well. And when they can deliver it and then they can show other people how to deliver it, well, now you have systems, now you have processes, and now you have a real business. And I think that was, early on, like I used to cringe when clients used to say to me, oh, this business couldn't survive without you. Like this business is you. And as much as so many, trainers would probably love hearing that, because it's like strokes the ego, I'm sitting there cringing going, then that means I don't have a business yet. I don't have a business that could run without me here. And so I just worked on developing all the systems and processes and then teaching those to others until it got to the point where, yeah, I can step away. I can not train and that the business will run perfectly fine without me. So while there might be those people that, might miss me in terms of like, hey, you're not training much anymore, or hey, you don't work with me anymore. It's like you're still getting high quality workouts. And probably at this point, they're probably higher quality than what I would be giving you anyway. Because again, everybody who's coming up behind me is being trained better and better and better. So I think that's when you realize, like, okay, I can step away from my business and this thing runs without me. Then you know that you're definitely well on your way to being able to franchise your business.
Okay, last question. So I know you run your business with your wife. Maybe tell us how that works both professionally and personally for you guys.
First and foremost, me and my wife have a phenomenal relationship, and anybody who ever sees it online it would probably make them sick. I know because I've had clients be like, you guys got to knock it off. But it's like, listen, first of all, she does more of the posting on it than I do, but hey, no, I mean, we have a phenomenal relationship. We love each other, but it's taken time and it's taken a lot of growth on both our parts to arrive where we are now. So when people look at us now, they're going, wow, that relationship, that could never work with me and my wife, or like we could never do that. And I get that. And we would also be the first to say that even though we started early on working together, it wasn't anything what it looks like now. And it's taken a lot of personal growth on both our parts and then a lot of growth as a couple to really truly make it work. But I think what does make it work is the fact that, you know, we are very clear, and we know our roles really, really well. You know, we know what each of us is really good at. And, you know, the way that I like to describe it, it's like, you know, if you're on a 2-lane highway, right? I mean, we're driving right next to each other. But if I have to get off the exit and get on the service road, we're still traveling in the same direction. So it's like, we don't have to be, you know, right on top of each other to make it work. We just have to know that we're going in the right direction. And we make sure that we always come back to that. You know, we have our meetings with each other, right? Outside of, you know, outside of like being in the studio, most of the time we're actually separate. She does a lot of the work from home because we got 2 little ones there as well. And then I'm usually, you know, in the studio and whatnot. But again, we know what each other is doing all the time because we're always checking in with each other. But it was funny. I mean, like the way we arrived at this was literally like we started dating, and after we were dating, we got married. And when we got married, you know, we spent our honeymoon in Napa, and, you know, great place to honeymoon. But we also spent a little part of that time coming up with a business plan. Now, I don't know how many people come up with a business plan on their honeymoon, but, you know, our plan was, she was a teacher at the time. We wanted to get her out of what she was doing because, again, she wasn't, you know, I wouldn't say she wasn't passionate about teaching, but the circumstances in which she had to do her job they changed tremendously, and it was very stressful. And so we knew we could take her teaching skills, implement them in our business. And so we had to come up with a plan to do that. And once we did, again, we established our roles, we established what we each had to do, and we made it happen. And, you know, we're both very respectful of each other's role. And I think that's a huge part of it. And you know, I think part of it is that personal growth component, that we just had to arrive at that place where, you know, we can sit down and, I don't want to use the word criticize, but again, we can poke holes in what we're doing, or each of us is doing. And even though it might sting at times, it's like we recognize, like, hey, listen, like, this is what we need to do for the business. But we also know that, yeah, we have this relationship, we have kids that are depending on us. And so in order for us to be the best that we can for them, it's like we first have to take care of each other. You know, after God, like, she and I are priorities number 1 to each other. And so we set aside those date nights, right? We set aside that time that's just going to be us, because otherwise we could let the stresses of work, of family, of our kids and everything else come down on us. But, you know, we always come back to home base, right? And, you know, we put each other first. And I think that's the only reason why it works. And so, yeah, I mean, like, she's definitely my superpower, you know, and we realized early on that everything we do better together. And it's just that realization that, like, yeah, she's a rock star in her own right. And,
Yep.
You know, so, and I'm pretty good at what I do, but we recognize that, yeah, even still, we are just better off doing all this together.
Before we wrap up, do you want to tell people how they can get in touch with you, where you're based, and just a little bit more about the business?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously all over social media. I mean, you could look up Pure Physique. Often these days doing more stuff, I'm more on Instagram. So, you know, Mike_Lipowski, Michael at purephysique.com. Our franchise site is franchisewithpure.com and purephysique.com. So those probably be the easiest places to connect. Trying to form relationships is always a good thing in my mind. So anybody who wants to connect, I'm out there.
It's really been great having you on the show. So yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Great being here.